Okay. All right. Okay, we're going to call this Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on December 3rd, 2019 at 7 p.m. Roll call, Commissioner Wirtz.
Here.
Commissioner Hudson.
Here.
Commissioner Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Lovingood.
Here.
Commissioner Boyer.
Here.
And myself, Commissioner Romai, is also present. Commissioner Robinson is excused absence. Going on to public comment. Angel, do we have anyone signed up?
We do not.
All right, moving on from public comment. 4A, consideration and possible action on the meeting minutes for the regular scheduled Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on November 5th, 2019.
All good.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion.
I would like to move that we accept the minutes from the November 5th meeting.
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Hudson and a second by Commissioner Wirtz. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Consideration of a public hearing and possible recommendation on the proposed specific use permit for the property located at 300 Ed Schmidt Boulevard, 1.064 acres, more or less, of land, Lot 2, Block A, of the Shops at Hanson's Corner Addition, subdivision allowing a car wash in the B2 General Commercial Zoning District.
Good evening, Commissioners. So this is a request to put a car wash on a B2 lot. So this is Lot 2, 1.064 acres. It is the lot that is just north of the Dairy Queen. What they're proposing is a 4,048 square foot car wash. And so staff reviewed the request. This is what is in the UDC. And so they're permitted by right in the LI and or light industrial and industrial districts, but they require obviously a SUP in the B2 district, and so that's why they're before you tonight. There are some conditions that they have to meet, which are like operating hours, materials, and then obviously noise, nuisance, that sort of thing. And so an SUP is evaluated on the following criteria. The future land use map identifies this area as commercial, so they're in compliance with that. The proposed use is permitted by SUP in the B2, so they're in compliance with that. And the property is already platted and is ready for development, so long as they get the appropriate site plan and building permit. And with that, staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval to City Council for the SUP.
Great. And this does have a public hearing, so I will open up the public hearing at 7:03. Angel, do we have anyone?
We do not.
I will close the public hearing at 7:03 and open up to the commission for discussion.
Could you just go back to the slide of what they have to follow? Just so
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Okay.
So the one question I have is, we have an identical one on just the other side of 79, not even 100 feet away. I mean, is that a good idea to make just...
It's more than 100 feet.
Well,
Yeah, it's a whole lot more than 100 feet.
And there's a lot of trains.
Yeah, I mean,
Across the railroad tracks,
unfortunately,
not much
we can't really
Say
say what develops where.
okay.
I think as long as they meet the conditions set in the UDC, I don't really see a reason to deny it.
Okay, well, I was just because we had one several times. It has not survived and went out of business. Then we had a vacant lot for a long time, and then finally another one came in basically the same area to try to do the same thing.
But
And is there enough volume for two? And do we even know
Big
what
Red is
company it is?
doing really good
It seems like Big
business.
Red's doing pretty
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Now,
Even as expensive as they are.
now the question.
That was one question I wanted to ask. If I could ask them, what are the pricing on the car washes?
Well, that doesn't really matter about the zoning. That has
Well, I
nothing
know,
to do.
but it would give me more of a, if they're going to be less than this other one is just really expensive.
Well,
I think they're relative to everywhere else I've ever been for a car wash. They're not more expensive.
But kind
Like
kind of
wash and
hand
roll and stuff.
kind of hand in hand with what you're saying is there's a difference between a car wash like the Big Red or the Mister or whatever versus a place where you can get detailing done and the hand waxing, and that takes up a lot more real estate, and there's a lot more parking involved with a detailing, waxing kind of place. I'm thinking, what is it, Sunrise and Palm Valley. There's one of those, and that takes up a lot of real estate, even though the car wash itself isn't all that big. And I'm just wondering.
Yeah, that's wash and roll. That's a good one.
I'm just wondering if maybe we need to look at how the SUP is defined for these car washes, because there are essentially two different types. There's the automatic go through, pay your $20 a month membership fee or whatever, and you go through as often as you want, or they've got one at the Wag-A-Bag. You just roll on through. Then there's the one where you can pull your car up, have it detailed for $100 or hand waxed for 40 or whatever the case may be, and that's a completely different style, I think, which impacts the traffic and the flow.
With that, though, those are more UDC conversations as a whole.
Agreed.
Not a
versus
special use permit.
a special use permit for today. Like, in terms of, because it's my understanding that if it's been reviewed and they're understanding how much space they have, they're going to work within that space as opposed to, and as far as the cost, Commissioner Boyer, if I'm understanding, if you're thinking of traffic, if it's going to be more traffic, less traffic, but we can't, as a commission, us going and saying, hey, how much are you going to charge is not necessarily what we're here to do as far as the special use permit.
Agreed. And my point was more of, I'm thinking maybe we need to further define the language of the special use permits for it's going to be an automatic car wash versus a hand car wash.
Which, if we could, Ashby, if we could make a note for next year when we start going through the UDC to have that discussion at that time.
Exactly.
Well, and
Yes.
to your point, Commissioner Hudson, the way a car wash is defined currently in our UDC, it has to have the mechanical equipment. So it wouldn't be a hand wash detail type facility.
Okay.
That
Could
wouldn't
be plus that.
Right. And so if that's something we need to look at where we kind of have two different levels of car wash, we can absolutely look at that. And I think we can start that process early next
This
year.
item just sparked that in my head, and I was like, oh, wait, hold on. There really are two different levels of car wash here.
Sure.
So, again, I know that that this is not impacting this particular
Right.
agenda item. It just spurred that thought.
Sure, absolutely.
Did we mail out notices and we got nothing back?
We didn't get anything back.
That surprises me. That really surprises me. Okay.
Other questions, discussion? Okay, if not,
I
then.
have one other one, real quick. Will they be required to have two entrances into the car wash? Because where Chick-fil-A and Dairy Queen is, there's only one. That is just horrendous.
So the way this
onto
property
Ed Schmidt.
will work is they actually, in talking to our engineering department, they're not allowing any more drives off of Ed Schmidt. So they're going to have to use the existing drives and then have an access easement to get to the lot. So they won't have a drive onto Ed Schmidt.
So there's not going to be a way to get off of Ed Smith right there and pull in?
Correct. Because of the way our UDC requires driveways, they have to be, based on the speed of Ed Schmidt, they have to be almost 400 feet apart. And so the distance, and
So they have to be an
my
internal
understanding is it's a
driveway.
huge traffic concern to have more than the two driveways already there.
So then I have a further question to that. We know that the driveway that's coming off the back of the Home Depot that's really not really used? Are we going to direct for their site plan lot to have to go out that way? So we direct them away from the interior road of Dairy Queen and the fast food and up to coming in past the Home Depot.
I mean, I think how they lay out their site is really going to be up to them. I think right now we're only talking about the use. And so if they're talking about configuring the site in a way that the majority of their traffic is going to come from the northern driveway, while that may make sense from a business standpoint, that's kind of their decision.
So we don't have any control
Because there's
of looking-
connectivity from the Dairy Queen, because Dairy Queen has that little stub out,
Right.
and so they'll punch through on that and go to their site. And then just to the north of them, there's a potential, that's where that Jason's Deli is supposed to go, and so there will be another driveway coming that way.
I think it'll eventually get connected both ways,
Yeah.
with Jason's Deli being in between.
All right. Well, I make a motion that we approve the special use permit as written.
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Clark, and heard Commissioner Boyer just a fraction before you, Tony, so second by Commissioner Boyer. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. 4C, consideration of a public hearing and possible recommendation on the proposed 415 Ed Schmidt Boulevard Planned Unified Development, 2.247 acres more or less of land located on County Road 138.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. So y'all all saw this one not too long ago when they applied for an SUP. So these are the properties that are just outside of Emery Farms, the commercial tract just east of it that fronts on Ed Schmidt. So this is almost across the street from that car wash that y'all just saw. So this is what a proposed rendering looks like for the hotel that they're proposing there. So they have 3 potential color palettes that they're looking at for this. Kind of the big asks in the PUD are they're asking for 4 stories. So the UDC is the reason they're going for the PUD is kind of the configuration of the hotel along with the height. So they're asking for 4 stories as opposed to 3. And then in addition, the SUP required them to be 1 foot offset for every 1 foot of height as a condition that was approved by City Council and you guys as well. So kind of just to jog y'all's memory on that a little bit. And so this is the proposed, this is just a potential layout of what they're looking at. Ed Schmidt being to the right. So this is actually north facing. And so the entrance of the hotel will actually be south facing. The homes on Emery Farms are to the left on the plan side. So you can see they have quite a bit of buffer. They have parking and then an aisle and then more parking before you even get close to the building. So you're looking at, 18 plus 26 plus 18. So you're looking at, 36, 56 feet or so, 66 feet before you even get to the hotel. And so they're pretty far offset on that. This is kind of just a proposed layout of the rooms along with the pool. You have the parking, again, left side being Emery Farms, right side being Ed Schmidt, just to orient you all a little bit. You can see some of the landscaping that they're looking at as well. Just kind of a little more zoomed in version so you can see the layout of the rooms a little bit better. Just to give you a little more information. And then with that, the only thing in staff's review of the PUD that needs to be added is the requirement for the 1 foot offset for every 1 foot of building height. But other than that, staff reviewed the PUD and recommends approval with that condition.
Okay. All right, and this also has a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing at 7:15. Angel, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
No, ma'am.
We will close the public hearing at 7:15 and open up for discussion through the commission, and we do have representatives here that can speak if you have any questions.
I do have an admin note. on the agenda item, it says it's located on CR 138. Is that correct?
I felt weird saying it,
It
but
should be 119.
Okay.
Thank
So I
you.
think that's just a typo because
Yeah.
the notice was correct.
Okay.
okay.
Good. I wanted to make sure we weren't noticing a bunch of people on 138.
And with that, with the notice, did anyone come back with anything?
We had one in favor and one opposed.
Okay, and the reasoning for the opposed?
The opposed was concerns about a hotel being next to the adjacent residential property values and that sort of thing.
Ashby,
Yes, sir.
can you go back and bring up the plan?
That one.
That one.
Yes, sir.
On the, what was, make sure I'm looking at this right. On the west side, where the parking is going to be, I'm taking that, the dotted line there is the property line and or the fences of the residents, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there going to be any type of buffer
There will
that
be
will go along
some
that?
green space there. I think there's a potential to, I mean, to me that seems like there's a lot of parking there and maybe there's a potential to add a little bit more. But I think if you want to require them to make sure that's planted or require a masonry wall or something of the sort along there, that would be suitable. I think that there is what appears to be approximately a 5-foot green space buffer, and then you hit the parking, and then you have the 66-ish feet before the building. So the building's set back far enough, but it's a lot of pavement,
Right.
and so there's not a huge landscape buffer.
And the landscape buffer that we're seeing here does meet the UDC requirements, correct? Or no?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Now, my question is that something we can even require based on the new law changes?
For a landscape buffer?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. Also, is the number of parking, if this is this, we're not looking at this as a preliminary plot right now?
No, this is
Okay.
just a kind of a rough layout. I don't even think this will be the final layout. I think this is just something they submitted to kind of give us an idea as to what they're looking at. And the idea, I think, on this was to show how far the building was going to be from the residential properties, where it was going to orient, and then kind of how the site was going to function.
So will they, if they make changes to this, will they have to bring it back to us?
If this ends up being an exhibit in the PUD, yes. And so I think if you guys are wanting to make some changes based on this and you want it in the PUD, then we make that a condition and then they have to make that change.
Well, I know they're spending a lot of money here, and I think it's great. I personally would probably like to see some type of vegetation along that privacy fence, just for a little bit more added security for the residents.
Sure.
I don't think it's going to cost a fortune, but it's going to add to the cost. I understand that. But I think my opinion is they're basically saying, hey, we want to be a good neighbor. We're going to try to protect as much of your privacy as possible. So I personally would like to see some type of vegetation, growth, trees, crepe myrtles,
Please speak your.
My name's Maureen Rooker. I live at 103 Water Lily. I represent VOA Developing LLC, who is the buyer of the property. And we don't have a problem with the money on the vegetation. To my recollection, it is going to be the masonry fence. But whenever you start planting, and you know this, whenever you start planting things right next to these fences, and I did the Hampton Inn, they had a big problem with the way the city had everything proposed at the time. Their engineers came in and they fought it and they had a hard time and said, "You want me to put a tree right here? Do you know what's going to happen with this tree in a year? It's going to be busting through, pipes and things like that." And so we have to be careful of what we're demanding to be put where. Just, if you're going to put that nice fence, it's going to block everything. You also don't want your vegetation going through it. You don't want rats going through it and snakes going through it like you have in your backyard. So I just want to, remind you guys of that. We don't have a problem spending the money. That's not the big deal. It is a Hyatt product. It's going to be very nice upscale. The Hyatt does not do anything. I think it's Hyatt. Oh my God, it might be Marriott. Please forgive me if I said that wrong. But anyway, we don't have a problem with that. But as Susanna would know, I fought that fence issue over in her neighborhood. And whenever you plant, all of that there, and it can't be, you get rats, you get snakes, you get rodents. So we've been fighting that. So please keep that in mind.
Okay. My fault. I
Okay.
was not aware there was going to be a concrete fence.
Okay, there was a concrete
Yeah,
fence.
we'll add that to the PUD so that it's a requirement.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
So I think-
yes,
okay.
we're
As long as we have
spending-
the we just want
Then
some
I-
kind of a
then
barrier.
then I'm fine with. I'm
Okay.
fine with that.
Whenever,
Yes.
if and when there's a motion made tonight, just make that part of the condition.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's there for that whole entire area, if I'm not mistaken.
Can't see it. I
We
think they
passed
didn't
something
show
else
it
was
here.
there.
Do we know how tall it's going to be? How tall? The
Actually,
masonry-
can you go to another? I think it shows the masonry wall here on this, the last page.
I think I cropped it to make the picture a little bigger, Randall.
Oh, it's the 44. There's the last page in the thing. It looks like there's a wall.
Page 44. Yeah.
Page
Oh,
44.
yeah.
You can see the wall
Okay.
along the entire length of the property.
Okay. I'm fine. I'm fine. That.
I think that's what that is.
Oh.
I think it is too. But I'm fine with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, that's what they did in Georgetown, and they were saying they're going to do the same thing here.
Yeah, I have some banana trees in my backyard I've been trying to kill for years.
With that, I do appreciate the lack of windows on the side of the Emery Farms, and I also like the orientation of the pool not being next to the neighborhood as well. I think that's wonderful. Any other discussion or thoughts?
My only concern is that, per the last slide on this, we do ensure that, as part of the motion, it is 1 foot of setback, and also that they adhere to the UDC.
That, just so y'all know, I wanted to make that a condition of the PUD, but the proposal, the site plan that we've seen exceeds that, so.
Understood.
But I would also just make the condition of the masonry fence as well.
Yeah.
So how tall are the mason?
It'll be 6 feet.
6 feet?
So what you're saying is this condition, what they're building is actually exceeding this?
Correct. I wanted to include it in the actual PUD document because it clarifies everything. So that's a minimum.
Okay.
And so exceeding that's not a problem if we push the building further. But if they wanted to say do a 45-foot building, they had to be 45 feet from that property line. I just wanted to make sure because one, that was a condition of the specific use permit. So we wanted to make sure we followed that as well as just had it in the PUD for extra coverage.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because this is the time to get those things in that documentation, not when we're seeing a preliminary
Well,
plat.
everybody's on the same page.
So from what I'm hearing then, we're looking at 4 stories, minimum of 1 foot setback for 1 foot of height, and a 6 foot masonry fence.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. So, any other discussion? Then I will entertain a motion, which I think Hudson's going to make.
I will make a motion that we approve 4C with the addition of minimum 1 foot setback for every 1 foot of height, the 6 foot tall masonry wall, and that they are allowed to go to 4 stories.
I'll
I will
second that.
second it. She beat me. That's all. I don't care.
All right. I have a motion by Commissioner Hudson and a second by Commissioner Boyer. Any other discussion?
All I would like to say is, Maureen, tell your client that I think what he's proposing is absolutely gorgeous. And I think it will add a lot to Hutto. It's something that we desperately need. It will also bring in some more tax revenue, which the city
Yes, we get
desperately
zero
needs.
incentives or kickbacks or tax abatements or anything, so everything is towards the city.
Good job.
Good job. All right.
Good job for y'all, not them. Thank you, guys.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. 4D, consideration and possible recommendation on the proposed Titan Innovation Business Park, Lot 5 preliminary plat, 12.06 acres more or less of land, one commercial lot located on Schneider Boulevard.
What page is that? Because I think we got something stapled in
Yeah.
here.
80?
Starts on
What
page
is
80.
that on?
81.
80. Couple more. Almost there.
Oh, yeah, it starts on page
There it
8.
is.
So, this is part of the Titan Innovation Business Park, obviously. This is one of the lots that is pretty close to Emery Farms. Everything seems to be in that area. So what they're proposing is 12.06 acres of one industrial lot. So there's a slight lot configuration change. So this lot originally started out approximately 10 acres, and so with the additional size needed for the development that they're proposing there, they had to come in and do a preliminary plat a little bit larger. There is some money that will be allotted for some landscaping along the east side for that buffer for residential properties. But other than that, staff reviewed the plat, it meets the code and the local government code. And so with that, staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat to
All right. Wonderful. And with that, I will open it up to the commission for discussion on 4D.
Question on the east side, the east edge of the lot. What is the distance between that and the existing homes? Can't quite tell. And then, of course, corollary question goes along with that. Does that meet UDC requirements?
for the distance between the industrial and the residential?
Correct.
Yes.
It will. That's what I was talking about with the requirement for the buffer.
Right.
So-
I'm just not sure how big it is.
Right, so this property was part of a development agreement, and in that development agreement, there was certain money set aside to provide a landscape buffer, and I believe, actually, 25 feet?
I think it's at least 25 feet, but I know part of the monies for the trees in there have already been paid for as well.
Okay. And that cannot become a street.
No.
Good deal.
It is set landscape buffer on. So that distance,
So I'm a little confused here. It's 12.6 acres, so are they wanting to make it one commercial lot?
It is.
All the 12?
yes, it's one lot. That's what this is proposed before you tonight.
That's one
Okay.
industrial lot.
So it'll be one large industrial development.
Very large
And
lot.
it's gonna be light industrial.
Very large lot.
Yeah, and so they needed to have a little bit larger of a lot based on, I guess, the potential development that they're looking at.
Okay.
Do we
And
know
so,
what that is?
I do not. But that's why they're expanding this lot a little bit, and then you'll see in the future, the lots to the north of that will be coming before you guys probably next month.
And with that, just as a little educational piece, it is vital that we don't know what that is prior to making these
Right.
decisions, so that we're not influenced by,
Makes
oh,
sense.
I don't like
That makes sense.
Tinker
Actually,
Toys, and they're going to make Tinker Toys.
Did we notice this sent out?
Yes.
0?
Just double check, I don't believe so.
Although this did have.
Yeah, but
Because they're just reconfiguring their own lot that's already zoned industrial. They're just saying this one part is
Well,
12 acres.
Yeah.
Right, so all they're doing is.
they're doing a zoning, they're asking for a change, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was two smaller lots and they're making it one lot.
They needed the extra 2 acres.
Yeah, and the one north of that will be smaller based on.
And then, last question I have, is there any public utilities or anything that would go in that 25-foot buffer?
No, you can already see the utility easements drawn on here in dotted lines on the picture. It's going at a catty-corner angle through the neighborhood. That's what the dotted lines are. That's the on-court utility line.
Yeah, that's the giant overhead lines. I was talking
Yeah.
about wastewater and.
No, per the development agreement.
Okay. I came on after
Sure.
the development
No, I
agreement.
understand. It's required to be landscaping, and then that's, I'm looking up the deed right now for that portion on the website, but that's an addition to that.
Okay.
So I make a motion to approve the change in the size of the lot.
I'll second.
Come on, Tony, you gotta get in there.
No, I wasn't going to say it.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Clark and a second by Commissioner Hudson. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. 4E, consideration and possible recommendation on the proposed Southgate Phase 1 final plat, 23.809 acres, more or less, of land, 103 residential lots. This one is located off of CR 138.
This one actually is, yes. So this is formerly known as, I guess, Riverwalk South. They've changed it to Southgate. So this is phase 1. It is at the very southern end of the city of Hutto city limits. They're proposing 103 residential lots. They have, as you can see, dedicated right-of-way to Williamson County via this plat for the widening of County Road 138.
Great.
They have their main entrance, which is on the bottom of this page, which is on the eastern side of the subdivision. And then in order to meet the access requirements for this section, they have an access easement proposed off of Madera Canyon. But again, 103 residential lots, a couple of green link lots, Stafford Future plats, and East Cove, 23 acres. The access easement that they're proposing off of Madera is a temporary access until the connectivity of the future sections comes into play.
Okay.
And then once that comes into play, they will no longer need that access. With that, staff reviewed the plat. It meets the UDC and local government code, and staff recommends it. I'll go back to the zoomed-in version. Any questions?
All right, thank you. Opening up to commission for discussion.
A couple of questions. Well, comments. First one, question. Plat note number 5. Is there any reason we're going with a 10-foot easement rather than a 5 or a 3, as we've done in Mager Meadows?
That is at their request.
Okay.
Our code requires, so the 5 and 3 that you're thinking of in Mager is typically an interior or rear.
Mhm.
This is frontage and sides, like when it fronts on a corner lot.
Okay.
So typically, what we're going for now is to try and get all of the utilities in the front of the lots.
Got it.
And
Okay.
So your cable, internet,
Okay. That
everything in front.
that makes sense to me. I wasn't sure why there was a difference between the two developments.
Yeah, I think
One's 5, one's 10. Wait, what's going on?
Yeah, a lot of the subdivisions like Mager that have been around for a little bit have rear easements as well. This one will have it in the front,
Okay.
which seems to be more common practice.
And 45 feet's our minimum distance, because most of these are 50.
Yeah, 45 is our minimum. 50's pretty standard of what we see around here.
Okay.
45.
Comment, I really do not like a single point of access onto 138. I think that's just horrible planning on their part, because they're going to be stacking up additional phases, I believe, north of this. So all of that traffic, once 138 starts doing whatever 138 is going to do with Williamson County, that's going to be a nightmare.
So I believe it's going to be phase 2 of this is going to be the extension of Katz Lane. And so
Coming off.
that'll have connectivity to the west. So,
But that's going through another
right.
development that
Right.
is under development.
The long-term plan is that you have Katz being a major collector going west to 130, and then 130 being a secondary, and then it'll also connect to Riverwalk on the north side.
But, you know, that's 10 years
Right,
down
this
the
is-
road.
this is
2
the-
years from now, when 138 is completely closed, or whatever they're going to do with it, because we don't know.
Right. I mean, I
Having
don't
a
think
sing-
they'll ever be able to completely close it.
It's too busy.
They'll, at a minimum, they'll at least leave one lane, which is what it is now. But I understand what you're saying. That's,
Yeah.
I mean, you can see that's why they're dedicating such a large.
Yeah, I see the dedication. I'm just,
And I think eventually you'll have kind of the 3 segments of the subdivision. So this third may go all south, the next third may all go Katz, and then the next third may all go Riverwalk to the north. But like you said, you never know. There's also connectivity further east for any future development, and then as well as a couple to the west for the other development.
yeah,
And
I have no
there's-
problem with the actual platting of this. I just look at
believe
the
those are
single point of
connectors out to
access
the
and go,
next
wow.
neighborhood.
And I will tell you this, when planning staff initially reviewed it, we asked them, what was the purpose of Madera Canyon and why isn't it connecting to anything?
Right.
It's really strange. And we tried to get them to connect it, and technically it meets code, so unfortunately there's not a whole lot we can do on that front. But we were trying to get them to have more connectivity.
Yeah.
At least on this southern end of the development.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if we could force them to take out 21.
Yeah.
And that way you've got another circular
At
route
least then you've
through
got
the
2 points of
neighborhood.
access.
Yeah, no, that, I think actually Ashley made that comment. She
It
said,
wasn't as nice as Ashley's being right now.
I think that was actually her exact comment.
Yeah,
And that's not something we can force?
we can't, we don't have it in the ordinance. The fire code meets it. Madera will probably connect with the future right-of-way at some point, so they have their emergency access, which is all of the IFC can require, but if it meets statutory requirements, we can't require more than that.
Right, so you can see the additional right of way that they're dedicating to Williamson County, and Madera abuts that, so it will connect. It's just a matter of when that actually happens.
As an extra layer, I don't think that this was actually done after the southeast loop was finalized, or at least what they think their right-of-way is going to be. They may have to be working with the county, or actually, more so the county may have to be working with the developer. Some of those lots may not ever actually come to fruition. Seeing how they were going to jog the road further north. But this was in existence prior to the southeast loop plan, so
Okay.
that's what we can go forward with. We may see something significantly different in the future if that larger roadway does jog north.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just kind of looking down the road a little and going, wow, this is going to be a mess.
There'll definitely be some traffic fun.
Is there any way we can beg the developer to make that, do away with 21?
Statutorily, I don't think we can. I mean, we could ask.
We can ask, but there's no code requirement or state requirement that would
Back it
have
up.
any,
Tell them they can make a pocket park out of it.
That's 128 lots. It's 250, roughly 256 cars.
it's 103.
Wow.
Yeah, it's 103.
So 210 cars. We figure a lot of people have 2 cars.
Okay.
Right, but you also have to think by the time this section of the subdivision is fully built out, phase 2 will be have their roads
Underway.
Well, they'll have their
Hopefully.
roads in typically, and so whatever access secondary access you're gonna get from phase 2 will be in place by the time, say, whatever lot 43 is lived in.
But aren't we also, isn't the developer also banking on the adjoining development having their roads put in?
I think there's an aspect of that, but there's also the developer of this also developed Riverwalk, so that connectivity is as close to guaranteed as you can get.
Okay. I was just thinking for the Cat's Lane connection, they're counting on a different developer to have their stuff together.
Well, and if that's not in place by the time they get ready to do phase 2, they're going to have to look at alternative connectivity and may have to reconfigure section 2.
Okay.
And that'll be on them.
Okay. I mean, I guess we have to approve the plat statutorily, but I have misgivings about this plat.
Ashby, in the little note that you made about next year's conversation with the UDC and car washes, can you also make a little note about a conversation concerning access points and how all these things flow together? Since this is a perfect example of our hands are tied, and now with that we've even made some additions and corrections to the UDC since this was originally platted as a preliminary plat. So, you know, this is one of those.
The 21.
I mean, in addition to that, the ESD reviewed it, and they were good with it. And
Oh,
so,
sure.
Thinking of it from a purely emergency access standpoint, if they feel that they have sufficient access, you know, I don't know what more we could really ask for, unless we look at, you know, requiring a full access. I don't even know if we can legally do that in the beginning, but that's something.
Yeah, it's it's at least having the conversation, and then some of those things from a state level can be brought in as part of that conversation. All right, with that, any other discussion on this one? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we recommend for approval the 4E for Southgate Phase 1 final plan.
I'll second.
I would like to add, though, they could please consider 21 removal for traffic flow. Not that it's required, because it can't be, but just as a staff suggestion that planning and zoning agreed. Because who knows, we're going to have to work with this developer in the future, and if they know that they worked with us, then maybe we'll be more favorable to them in the future too, right? So, quid pro quo there a little bit.
Oh, don't use that
sorry,
word.
can't use that term.
All right. So I do have a motion from Commissioner Boyer with a second by Commissioner Hudson. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Consider 4F, consideration and possible recommendation on the proposed Mustang Creek Phase 2 final plat, 14.43 acres, more or less of land, 65 residential lots, located off of FM 1660 North.
So this is phase 2 of Mustang Creek. Phase 1 is just south of where the proposed site is on the map, just north of Rivers Crossing. So phase 2, 65 single-family lots, 3 Greenlink lots, 4 open space and traffic extension lots, and then 2 landscape lots. You can see it has plenty of access. They have 2 north-south and then 1 additional frontage on 1660. So they have the connectivity to phase 1, and then they have the proposed, the future connectivity up through the potential phase 3, as well as the connectivity to the existing roadway network. Pretty straightforward. Staff recommends approval as the plat meets the UDC and local road
open up to the commission for discussion.
Another question. I think last time we talked, we hadn't received the TIA yet. Do we have that, or even a projection?
I don't know the answer to that. Our engineering department reviewed it, and so typically, if they would have received the TIA, that would have been looped into their comments.
And then honestly on this, because most of the access is coming from FN 1660, even if we get a TIA, it's gonna have to end up eventually being kind of also reviewed by TxDOT to ensure that they're getting what they want. I know that our team is always in conversations with TxDOT because of 1660. And I know that they've been looking at it, but I'm not sure if we have the full TIA or if we just know. I mean, the ITE manual gives us what the prospective traffic counts are going to be, so I think that's where we kind of ended up is this is what it probably should be, and TxDOT's having to work with the developer directly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
our
'Cause-
engineering department didn't have any comments on it, so.
yeah, I just know with 1660 being a TxDOT road, we're going to run into TxDOT issues if we're looking at lights or anything like that. Speed limit variance, changes, whatever.
Other comments? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve 4F.
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Hudson with a second by Commissioner Wirtz. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0.
Ashley was feeling left out, so she's going to do this one.
4G, consideration
Not
of consideration of a public hearing and possible recommendation on the proposed UDC ordinance amendment to the Code of Ordinances 214 edition as amended, Chapter 16, Article 16.02, UDC Chapter 2, Section 10.201, General Rules by adding notification language.
Okay, so you may remember our conversation probably about a month and a half ago. Staff took that then subsequently to City Council, and we are now coming back with what their recommendations were. They did want more than a 300-foot distance, which was what was discussed. So what we are proposing tonight is a 500-foot distance. We've got all of the proposed language in the ordinance within your packet. But really, it's to add posting deadlines. We don't have anything in our ordinance right now. We just base it off of what state law is, which is fine. We used to have notification requirements in the 2007 ordinance, but since then it was taken out and we just follow what state law says, which is good, but what we've been noticing as a community is we've had a lot of requests for more information, so we're trying to accommodate that. So we do have posting deadlines that will be now published. The public notice and minimum requirements of what's going to appear in that notice, and also in the mail notice of the minimum requirements of what information is needed. So it's really what we've been doing, but we just want to put that in the code so that we understand that we are following the code, and it's not just what we're following a policy or we're following the directive from state law. We're obviously always going to follow state law, but we also want to make sure that it's a part of our UDC as well. Zoning actions will require the 500-foot minimum, and annexation of plots and variances will continue with a 200-foot notification distance, mainly because those are statutory, so there's less that we're really able to speak to. I think you've seen a little bit of that tonight. So there are some things where plats and defining a universe or defining the lots and the legal lots is a little bit different than defining the uses and really more of the overall impacts. Once we get to platting, we should probably have known the impacts a little bit more, since that's just really lines on a piece of paper. The applicant also is going to be required to post a 2 by 3 foot weatherproof sign on the property. And the way we tried to word that is to either locate it on public right-of-way, neighborhood entry, or other high visibility location. Okay, Ashley's going to give me that language. Still pretty small, so those of us that are over the age of 40 may not be able to read that.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Hey, you have a screen. I don't see this. So, that's impossible. possibly solve?
Even with the screen, some of us that are over 40 are not able to.
However, really what we've tried to do is accommodate the discussions that we had at P&Z and then also accommodate discussions we've had at City Council and then the public comments that we've received as well. So trying to encapsulate all that, one thing that we do know is what we're going to be looking at in the future, it's not with this action, is looking at adding a $1 per notice fee for each of those letters just to help cover staff costs. There was a discussion, if you were not present at City Council, that says is really more so of a residential variance when that really only affects that residence and a few around it if they're wanting a shed or maybe to encroach into their setback or something, that we would allow more of like 50 notices, just part of the application fee and then $1 notice. Really what we're looking at more so is for the SUP that was in the Old Town District that just occurred for the hat shop and things like that. Like we could have given them 50 notices. Obviously we did. This isn't a part of the UDC yet, but that's a common thing that we've been essentially waiving for now. So this would help out on the much larger notices. One of the, we'll go back to this one. This is the Durango, so this is the 500-foot buffer. So you'll see how much different that is. And that smaller one is the 200-foot buffer we do now. But what would be nice is because of staff time and the amount of materials that we're having to use to get $1 back so that we're not having to expend as much of citizens' taxpayer money to help fund future development, that's what we're really looking for. I think $1 will probably cover it, knowing that postage is about 55 cents. We can't charge more than what it costs us, but we can charge about that. The other item is that we're going to start charging the notification paper fee, so that is then a pass-through. Sometimes if something gets tabled or an applicant pulls it, then that means the city is no longer eating close to $200 every time that something is postponed. I think there will be a little bit of discussion on that, because if it's something that's postponed because we have a meeting cancellation or something outside the applicant's control, obviously I don't think that it would be fair to charge that to someone if it's outside. But if it's something that they're going to postpone, then we're going to have to come to some decision on, okay, if you're postponing it, then yes, you have to pay for re-notification, including letters at that point. So you'll see here what we have Hutto current is the 200 feet, and then Hutto proposed is the 200 feet for the annexation, plating, and variances, and then 500 feet for the zoning, and then we'll do $1 per letter and the newspaper cost, and then we're also just going to require an affidavit for the applicant to show us that they've posted the sign, so it'll really be a photo and then a date stamp and then an affidavit saying that they have posted the sign. But then that helps us get that word out a little bit more. And then a highly visible, we've tried to word it so that it's not just on a public right-of-way. If there's a public right-of-way that might be closer, but there's something that might be more visible, they can, or staff can actually say, well, we need you to post it here. So we're trying to get the word out as much as possible. So, and really with that, we're just looking for a recommendation for City Council. This will be heard on Thursday night. So we're trying to effect change as quickly as possible, knowing that we've had a lot of public meetings requesting more notification. And so we're trying to get this on the books as quickly as possible. And then staff will have to follow up with the finance department to amend the fee structure. But that's not something we open up a lot of the time. So I'm hoping that we can do that sooner rather than later in the first part of 2020. But right now, since we're not charging for anything, it's not too much of, it doesn't really give me heartburn to not do that if we can't get that done the first 2 months of the new quarter. But it is something we're going to have to work with a separate department on to make sure that we're looking at that fee schedule and updating those fees.
So I would think we would need to table this until the fee structure, because the fee structure could technically be agreed to what we currently have, and then you increase the size after you have the fee structure in place. I don't know why you would increase cost to the city when we could do it the other way.
The developer's paying it.
Right.
Yes.
Well, not for but we didn't put in here a variant for residentials like we asked.
I don't think
That's
you guys
in-
would see the amendment to the fee schedule.
Yeah, you'll never
Right.
see, that's going to go straight to council. The fee portion should be on there. It'll actually be a part of the fee schedule. So the first 50, that's always a part of the fee schedule, not the ordinance. Anything that has to deal with the money portion, we don't try to put in two separate ordinances. We wouldn't put it in this ordinance and then also the fee structure, because if that ever changes, if a future council changes it, that's two separate places we need to change it and do notification. This just simplifies it. So anything that deals with money, we only deal within the fee structure.
And it seemed like both you guys and the city council's goal in this was not to incur more cost to the city, was to always make sure that the development was paying for development. And so knowing that, we know that the city council and you guys both wanted to make sure that these changes weren't going to cost the city more money. And so we went ahead and tried to get this ordinance prepared, noticed, and then heard as quickly as possible. And then,
Of which I'm so sorry. I need to open a public hearing at 7:56 and close the public hearing at 7:56.
It's a packed house, are we sure?
So,
Go ahead.
I have two things. So, on the residential variances, they're not going to have to post a sign for that, right?
Right, residentials wouldn't have to. The signs are really only for the larger zoning. So
Okay.
like the SUPs you saw tonight, or the PUD, that would have had to have a sign. But for plats, we don't want to see the signage. Not trying to thwart, of course, any public hearing notification, but plats are a lot different. So a lot of times what you'll hear here, and I think what most of you are accustomed to, is that if we send out a notice on a plat, you're getting a lot of land use discussions, and then you have to say, that sounds like great feedback. Unfortunately, the statutorily meets the requirements. I can't listen to that portion. So we're trying to be fair and at least get people involved when what they are saying on the land use really makes the most impact, because sometimes at platting, we really can't affect change at that point. We're past that point.
Okay.
So no signage at platting, but certainly signage at an SUP or a different, any zoning
Okay.
action.
And then my other question was, would 50 notices cover most residential, or is that going to be now a burden on the residents?
It would really cover the majority of them, especially for most residences are only doing variances at that point. Maybe an SUP like the hat shop for the SUP that just occurred in the downtown area, but I think that one may have only had 28 notices.
Okay.
So it's something where if 50 gets them to a certain point, especially for 500 feet, they may have 13 to 20 something dollars. It wasn't an overly burdensome, because we do, I mean, that was one thing that I think council was also really receptive to, is that we don't want to burden the residential component of Hutto that are already taxpayers and having them pay for a lot more if they're just looking at trying to add something small or do something different with their home. What we're trying to do is have development pay for its own development.
Okay.
Right, and when you go 200 feet, I mean, if you have a 50-foot wide plot of your house, that's 4 houses up, 4 houses south, 4 houses. I mean, so you're talking maybe 20 houses.
No one else beyond that needs to know that
And
doing
it's
a
a-
shed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How do we handle it
I
through our
think-
homeowner association though? Like, because I submit like a site plan to the homeowner association, but I'd have to go submit a variance to the city.
Well, we have deed restrictions.
So then we
It's
don't have
different.
to.
It's different.
So isn't that going to be most people?
But not all. So like I'm
No.
not in a, I'm not in
Oh,
an
okay.
HOA.
Yeah,
So
the
neither am I.
city,
in country, yeah, and neither of us
Neither
are.
of us.
So
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yep. But I'm just saying to let you know, like a lot of neighborhoods that are being built now are HOAs,
Right.
which means they fall under that, and they wouldn't be doing this variant stuff in the $50.
Okay.
That's what I was trying to tell you.
Right.
That's right, because he was asking questions.
So the HOAs take the place of that.
If they've got deed restrictions, then yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Kind of an opinion question. I've seen I've been at the city council meetings and stuff like that. It seems like a lot of people may miss the zoning notice or the whatever the case may be, and there seems to be a lot of interest in the annexations. Do you think we should keep annexation at 200 or maybe bump that to 500?
What I was going to say is, why don't we make it real simple? So, I mean, we understand what's going on, but I think the general public will be very confused. Why don't we just make it all 500 feet for everything?
We could.
That way I mean, John Doe out there may say, well, it's 200 foot. Well, no, it's for this and this and this. And it's 500. Why make it complicated? Just let's pick one, if it's 500 feet, 500.
That's why we said 300, because that was the
Right.
point.
But-
But
but
then
the
council
council-
came
but the
back to
council didn't-
500 and trying to make it different.
Right.
That's why we said 300. When we had our discussion,
Yeah.
that was the whole reason we
Exactly.
settled on 300.
Right.
Because it was 33% more than state law, and it was a compromise between commercial and residential, and then
Yes.
we put the extra 100 feet for every story above.
But
Right, but
yeah,
I would
just
say
think-
for developers, not for residents.
What was that?
I would leave the residents, like the variances, to like 200.
for the
But,
residential,
like, for developers,
yeah, for
bump it up to
residential
500.
variance, I think that's a great idea. Is leaving that at 200, but everything else, yeah, let's.
So I would say, professionally speaking, as just a point to consider, annexations, if it's a voluntary annexation, I don't know what anybody else would have to say about a voluntary annexation. A property owner has the right to petition the city and say, I want to be included in the city and this is what I want my zoning. So you would be speaking on the zoning application. You would not be speaking on the annexation application as much. Or if a property wants to plat and it's already been zoned single family, you're going to invite people to speak on, I don't want that to be residential, when the city has already guaranteed residential zoning. We cannot take away private property owners' rights.
Right.
And so that's where we would be allowing, not that it's wrong, but we would be then encouraging comment when we cannot then take their comment into consideration.
Okay.
And so that's the only part that this was saying, state law is really good at some things, but it may not be good at getting the word out on the zoning items where really the public opinion and what the adjacent neighbors want should really be a part of consideration on that. And so that's where we kind of consider it, and I think that's where council.
Either.
Well,
So I guess then the exception is not the other stuff. The exception is zoning.
So it's everything's 200 except
Except
zoning.
So yeah, so
And
the
that's
only
500.
items up there that are discretionary in nature are going to be the zoning and the variances.
Okay.
So we're really just trying to get the word out on the discretionary items, but then you'll also see here, we've included the chart in the ordinance, but this is just a blown up portion of it, that everything then, although we already do this, we are now also requiring it by ordinance that it gets posted on the website in the same manner. And then the other portion, if you look at the ordinance, is also that any HOAs or neighborhood associations of record are also notified. So it's not just if the HOA owns a piece of property within the notification boundary that they are noticed. It's if we know that there could be one, and we have their information online in our own databases, because I know that the city often has those, that we will also attempt to engage them in a, hey, let your HOA know, or let all your constituents know in your HOA that this is what's also going on. So it may be that something, let's say Lakeside Estates, it could be that something is occurring on the south side of that, but the HOA would be notified to let everybody know this is occurring near our neighborhood. And that would, I believe, go for,
That'll get more people talking about a gas station that went into a neighborhood. Sorry. Is it
That's
too
fine.
soon?
How did y'all come up with, or I don't remember discussing the a maximum of 1,000 foot?
They discussed that in the city council.
I'm playing devil's advocate here. I really am. You're going to have people out there that are going to be upset that live 1,001 foot.
I think so. I would say to that, because we can have the signage. If you did get a notice, you're going to see a sign, and it will be online, and your HOA will know. And at some point, we have to say we can't notify
Otherwise, we're
everybody,
letting
but
Like I
we
said,
are
I'm
doing
playing
the
devil's
signage.
advocate.
I know.
Well, but
I know.
also that's a 9-story building, which we don't even allow in the code, so.
That was the 1,000 feet maximum was a recommendation by the city council at their last meeting.
Was I? Okay, I must have missed that. Okay.
They said, the maximum allowed by code right now is 4 stories. So anything above that, go 100 extra feet up to a certain amount. If you get a 100-story building, you can't go 100,000 feet notice.
And I understand that too. Okay.
I mean, I don't know that we'll ever get a 100-story building. But you know what I'm saying.
And yeah, one of the things that I was thinking about with that extra 100 feet notice, we could get a 3-story Lakeline Mall type development, and it's 500 or 200 because it's less than 4 stories or less. Does that meet the intent?
Yeah, but you're forgetting that but if something like that, it's going to have a big footprint. So it's
Absolutely.
from the edges, so it's still going to get pretty far out.
Well, and right now, if
Absolutely.
they applied today, that's what the requirement would be.
I-
And so that's why I
Exactly.
think when you're talking about a zoning application, which they more than likely would have to do, you're looking at 500 feet minimum.
Right. What
Plus
I'm
HOAs,
saying
plus signage.
what I'm saying is, does that meet the intent of council wanting to expand the notification radius? You know, it's tall. You know, it could be 1,000 square foot footprint and 10 stories tall, and we're going to go out 1,000 feet. It's 500,000 square feet, and it's 3 stories tall, and we're only going to go out 500. That 500,000 is going to make a much bigger impact on the community, on traffic and
Potentially.
everything else. And my question is that meeting intent if we just go height? We don't go area?
But state law is only 200.
I
So
got-
500
I got
is
it.
more than
I-
acceptable.
I got
I mean,
it.
you're already going over
But I
double
think
what the state requires.
When you're talking about a project of that magnitude, even if you're talking about a 50,000
Everybody's
square
gonna know.
foot building, the notification window is going to be larger, but then the fact that it's that large of a scale of development, people are going to talk, people are going to know.
Right.
it's-
People
Exactly.
know
I think you saw it
Kalahari is
even on the
coming
co-op.
on 79.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. And-
Durango and the co-op, I think, is a really good example, and that's why we use them, is people outside the 200-foot notification buffer were coming in and speaking, saying, why
Right.
didn't I know? And it was, well, because you're outside the 200-foot notification buffer, but clearly you do know if you're here speaking at a public
Exactly.
hearing.
Exactly.
And so we're going to be putting it online. We're going to be letting the HOAs know. We're going to have signage, which I think that's the main scope of this is let's try to get a notice out there that at least has somebody, wait, what was that sign? Let me go back and see, and let's start calling. I think another component of this is trying to get staff to a point where we can then potentially have a map that shows where our zoning, I mean, we have the development map, but not everybody looks at that. But if we have something directly tied to public notice signage, I mean, we have the public notice page, but it can be, here's your public notice signage. What did I see on that corner? Maybe they'll start to get a little bit more interactive. Because I think we can only do so much as a city with
and
a pretty lean department.
and that's kind of where I'm going with this whole 10-story notification, the 10-story extra. I understand that's what council is trying to do to get more notification out there, but my thing is
the
that
same.
council is only looking
Yes.
at vertical for extra notification.
I think
So-
they're more worried about vertical because the higher it gets, the further away you can see it from your backyard, I think, or your front yard. I think that's more what's in their mind than the sides.
So
Well, one thing people are going to have to understand, we're going to have to go vertical.
Mhm.
We're going to have to go vertical because
I mean,
we don't
yeah.
have land go horizontal anymore. It's there. So that, you want me to say what you want to?
you can say about that, and then I've got one other thing.
I just have another question. Up there under specific use permit, should that not be 500 feet also?
Under the zoning category.
Under the zoning?
Okay, fine. Sorry.
Well, I think that the goal with that was, you look at something like a car wash tonight, how much of an impact does that have?
Depends
already
on
zone
what the
commercial.
specific use. It could be a liquor
Well-
store. It could be a
Right,
wine
and
shop. It could be
Look at the hotel.
it could be a smoke and vape shop. I mean, I don't know what other special use permits if we're going to have
Right,
to
so if
someday
we
think about
Looked at the
medicinal
hotel. The reason why you
places.
got the zoning item back tonight is because when it went to council, the applicant said, oh my gosh, I didn't realize 3 stories didn't work. I need 4 stories. I cannot do a 4 stories allowance with a use permit. The use permit is based on the use and the land use. So that's not a height restriction. That's a variance option. That's a zoning thing.
But I mean, I think if that's what y'all want, we do that.
Yeah.
I think it should be 500, so all
Okay.
zonings are 500. Now, the only other thing as far as for branding for the city, for these notices. Now, I'm not the artist to draw it, but we should have some like hippo with under construction or future coming holding up a sign that's in on
With a
every
hard
note.
hat?
With a hard hat that has like every notice
Tool
that's
belt?
there.
Are you doing
With a tool belt? Yeah, seriously.
Awesome.
Like, I think we should have that. I can't draw it, but
But
we need to have that so it's a branding thing that's that colored, and then everyone sees that. They're like, oh, that's something new. And then you can reject it to the website. It's our hippos in progress or something like that, right? So that we have this growth thing that we're more tying to the city, to the school, and our whole concept of hippos.
well, and I think even more importantly, it's noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that someone would stop and go, "Did I just see a hippo with a hard hat on?
Mm-hmm.
What was that?" You know.
A big orange hard hat.
I
Maybe
think
you can even
certainly-
write the high school art department to make something as a competition. I mean, we could really
we
make
have
it
a
cool.
really good communications staff out too, so.
Well, just to make it fun. I
we
just
can use some of our own.
if you want to draw it,
I actually
anyways.
like that idea too.
Okay. I mean, we could definitely make it noticeable. I mean, if that wants to be a part of the motion of let's make these signage. I mean, so we are just saying, we're right now just prescribing what has to be on the sign and the size of the sign, but certainly if we wanted to add something, I know I worked in another community where they made all the signs orange. So when you're going down the street, then there was a separate website that said, I think orange zoning signs or orange notification signs, and you would go to that and then it would give you the map of what was that orange sign I just saw. But we could do something like that and tie it back to and have it branded. I certainly do want to work with the communications team because I know Hutto, we have a lot of hippos, but it's not always a city thing, although we do embrace them here. It's more of the ISD thing, so we want to make sure that we're not stepping on any toes and having it branded part of what our branding.
We have a hippo in front of City Hall.
It is a bollard, sir. True story, it actually is a bollard. But it is a hippo
Is
as
that going
well.
to be the second high school?
I believe that all the high schools, they're going to try to name them after the hippos.
Yeah, they actually did a.
I still think they should be maroon and white for the north one. Let's get that rivalry started.
I don't think
Oh.
I don't think so.
Okay.
You got the
Any
red,
other
orange, and the maroon and
any other discussion concerning 4G?
Okay, real quick, just so I've got it set in my mind, what we're looking at right now is what we're proposing.
Yeah.
Well,
Except
but y'all wanted
With
to
the
do
change of
500.
the
Specific use to be
500 feet on
500.
the specific use permit.
Which
So
is
that all
500.
zoning.
We'll make
The
that
specific
change.
use.
Yeah.
So all zoning is 500.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion?
And that we try to have some graphic that hopefully ties with the city in the signage.
All right. Okay. Then I will entertain a motion.
I will take a motion for 4G to add the 500 feet for a specific use permit, and the for the signage to have a logo or something of that sort, and for recommendation.
Okay. And second?
Second.
That's cool. Good.
You're slow on the draw.
Warriors on
tonight,
a
so-
roll. I have a motion by Commissioner Lovingood with a second by Commissioner Boyer. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to 5.
I'm going to pass this back to the chair.
I would prefer not to pass it back to the chair. Let's just end the meeting right now.
Pass it to John.
No,
He's a rather quiet. No, Commissioner, if you would like to.
Thank you. I just want to let everyone know that this is my last meeting. I am stepping down at the end of this year. But I've been on this commission for 5 years and have enjoyed every minute. And it's been a pleasure working with all of you. And I'm going to miss y'all.
And if we need you at council this month, you're still mine.
I'm
just going to put that out there.
But otherwise, thank you all for the experience.
I'd like to thank Jessica too for all the time that she has put in, not only on P&Z but also with Keep Hutto Beautiful. I think you're a big asset to the community. Don't cry. Don't cry.
Too
Too
late.
late.
But you are in my opinion, a very big asset to Hutto. We're lucky to have you. Your knowledge on PNC is just phenomenal. And I thank you for that time, and it's been a pleasure knowing you. And you will not be, you'll always be here. Okay? We expect you to come. But thank you again. And thank Lance also.
Absolutely. Thank you for honchoing this mess. This is fantastic, and a lot of it, I think, has to do with your input and your direction. It's great.
Thank you.
Well, I can say I've only been here a few months, but I appreciate the information and the education that you have provided to me and not make me feel like an idiot. So I thank you very much.
And Jessica, I thank you for working with me when I was just on the zoning
lad
board
on
the zoning board of adjustment, only getting to meet once a year, and saying, hey, you can come onto this, and being able to get involved in that, and and then be able to see how you handle the chair meeting, so that I can learn how to do it at the zoning board of adjustment. So thank you, and encouraging me to go to the training, and just the growth and the development of learning about how the city government works. So thank you.
Does Development Services have anything else?
I mean, I'm not gonna cry, so
Or anything in the regular report, kind of?
I don't think so. I think, I know we kind of discussed at the beginning, I believe right before you called the meeting to order, we are not gonna have to have a special meeting. We have figured out a
Except
way.
the 24th?
Right.
Yes, we are
24th
having a
at
special
11:30 at
meeting
night.
on the 24th. It will go into the 25th. We'll have another one on the 31st.
Oh, awesome.
Bring
Oh,
around
yeah.
fireworks. I'm just kidding.
I'm not. Dinner rights included. So we can certainly have a good time, but getting the news of the chairperson yesterday was a little bit much for a Monday. But Jess and I go back a little bit further than even my employment here. So I know that I will continue to enjoy you as a friend, and then also in the community. So I have no doubt that we will have a lot of time together. And y'all have some big shoes to fill if you want to be chairperson. That's going to be a lot for you. But thank you.
You're welcome. All right, with that, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:18.